Okay, so in this week's guitar lesson, we have a dark and spacey, kind of an ambient sounding acoustic lead that has a lot of open space and a lot of sort of moodiness, and I was kind of going for that vibe. It's not something you typically see in guitar instructional videos anyway for acoustic guitar. With acoustic guitars, we're usually playing, you know, slide, or we're doing blues, or we're doing some kind of flat picking thing. We're thinking more like licks and riffs. This isn't that. This is more about creating a space and stacking chords on top of chords and creating dissonance. And I want to show you how to do that so that if you want to do this in the future, if you want to write your own thing or you want to use some of this when you're improvising, you'll at least know where some of this stuff comes from and you can recreate it. That's the idea anyway. So I'm going to split this lesson into two parts. In this video, we'll go through the first half of what I played in the intro. If you'd like to watch the second half, download the tablature and also get the MP3 jam track so that you can practice playing everything we're going to talk through. You can get those extra materials by going to activemelody.com and doing a search for EP617. Okay, so this song is played in the key of E minor, and I'll go through the chord. Actually, there's three chords in it. There's an E minor, a C, and a D. And there's an A in there too, actually, in the part 2 video. But anyway, in this video, we'll go through the E minor, C, and D. I'll explain the chord family for the key of E minor in a minute. I don't want to start off this video with that, so we will get to that. But I was going for sort of a Pink Floyd kind of vibe. One of my favorite bands, David Gilmour, is one of my all-time favorite guitar players. And I think one of the best albums of all time is Pink Floyd's Animals. I love that record. If you haven't ever listened to it, I would recommend you do that just to kind of appreciate a great work of art. It's really, it's just a perfect album in so many ways. Anyway, there's a lot of great acoustic playing on that. And I was trying to kind of go for that vibe. I wanted to create something that maybe would have sort of fit in with that album. This is sort of my humble attempt at doing that. So I wrote this jam track, and you know, I didn't really know what I was going to do for lead, but I figured I'd do something acoustic E, kind of dark. And anyway, that's what we got. So let's listen to the first part of this, and then we'll break it down. So the first thing that I'm playing there is just an E minor chord. I'm playing an E minor chord in first position, cowboy chord with my left hand. With my right hand, I've got this little rhythmic pattern thing that's going, that sounds like this. Let's count that out. So it's 1 and, oh, by the way, I'm doing a downstroke on the 6th string, and then I'm doing an upstroke on the 4th string. Behind this E minor chord. So that's what's happening with the left hand. So this is how you count it out. 1 and 2 and 3 and. So that's the first part of it. 1 and 2 and. So in the and of 2, you do an upstroke on that 4th string, and you start on the 1. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and. So notice 3 and is 2 downstrokes. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and. So when you get to 4 E and. So the E and is up, down, up. Up is on the 4th string, down is on the 6th string. Up, down, up. So when you put those two pieces together, you have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So that was the little cadence that I was playing there, and it's really all based around that E minor chord. If you happen to hit strings 6 and 5 on your downstroke and play a power chord, that works too. You could do it either way. Actually, I might have even started with that. I might have started with a power chord just to give it a little punch. Now, I realize I said that there's nothing technical in this. That, for some people, that will be technical because you're doing downstrokes on the 6th string and then you're skipping a string and you're doing upstrokes on the 4th string. But this is a great exercise. I mean, this would be something that I could just sit on the couch, watching a show or something and do that for hours. I mean, this is me. I'm neurotic, but that's what it takes sometimes to be able to, drill some of these ideas into your head. So it did that twice, and then a little fill in there, and that has 2 hammer-ons in it. So I'm doing open 5th string, with a hammer on to the 2nd fret. And I use my middle finger for that. I find that easier than trying to use my index. You use whichever finger works best for you, but for me, middle and ring finger are the ones I'm using. So it's that hammer on, and then we go to the 4th string and do the same thing. So, and with your right hand, it's down on the 5th string, upstroke on the 4th string. But when you put those two pieces together, I'll try and count this. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. So you just have to sneak that little lick in there. Right? So even if you get nothing else out of this lesson, that's a pretty cool little vamp that you can play over an E minor chord. So you could use that anytime. You could take that and use that as a fill lick. Like this. You know, you can just get creative with it. So that's our first idea. Okay, so now's where it starts to get kind of interesting. The jam track just stays on that E minor. The bass is playing an E note. On the keyboard it's playing an E minor. And then I went into this sound. It sounds so bad when you just hear it on its own, right? Two notes that completely clash, but what they're creating is a dissonance. I'll explain how to find this here in a minute. Here's the note I'm playing. I'm playing the 4th fret, 4th string, and I'm doing a downstroke with the right hand for that note, and then I'm doing an upstroke on the open G string, or the open 3rd string. Those are the two notes. Now, what those two notes are, and to find this dissonant sound, anytime you're playing over a minor chord, is you're playing, and this always has to do with the 3rd interval of the chord. Anytime you hear that dissonant thing, it has something to do with the 3rd. Just kind of remember that dissonant 3rd. So you have your 1, 2, and your 3. Actually, it's your flat 3 because we're playing minor, right? So that flat 3 is a G. And then the note behind that, just behind that, is the 2. So what you're actually doing and what's creating that dissonance are two notes that are just 1 fret apart. You have the 2 and the flat 3. Those are the two notes. And anytime you want to find that dissonant sound over a minor chord, that sound, all you have to do is find the flat 3 and then go 1 fret behind it, whatever that note is, that would be your 2, and play those two notes. But here's the trick. You have to be able to let them both ring out. So they need to be on different strings to do that. Now, it just so happens when you're playing in E minor that your G is open. So that makes this very easy to do, to create that sound. If we were playing in A minor, you have 1, 2, there's your 2, there's the flat 3. So those are our two notes, right? You'd have to find where you can do that where they're on different strings. So there's one, there's another one up here. A bit of a stretch, but I could do it. There's the sound. But you can hunt around though. A lot of times you'll find one of those notes being an open string. So it just so happens that my B note is an open string. So now I just need to find the other note. So I could do it like this. Strings 2 and 3, where you're kind of doing them backwards. So you have to hunt around a little bit, but you'll start to find patterns, like off this E minor shape. I know I've got this dissonant thing that I can do across two strings there. So that's how it works over a minor chord. What if you had a major chord and you wanted to create dissonance? What if I had a C chord and I wanted dissonance? How many times you've heard that in ragtime or bluegrass? Right? What I'm doing there is the flat 3 and the 3. See, I said it always revolves around the 3, whether you're doing it over a major chord or a minor chord. So it's the flat 3 to the 3 over a major chord. If it's a minor chord, it's the 2 to the flat 3. That's really the formula, I guess. Okay, let's get back to this key of E minor. So what I ended up playing there over that E minor was, I just went back and forth. 4-3, 4-3, 4-3, down, up with the right hand. and created that 2 to the flat 3 sound, that dissonant sound. But if you'll notice, I sort of played it quietly, then I kind of crescendoed it a little bit, and then kind of changed the tone. And what I was doing was just creating a little bit of an atmosphere. Now, this is something you may not have ever even done on an acoustic guitar. You've never maybe thought in this way, because a lot of times, like I said, you're always strumming and you're trying to sort of keep up with acoustic, but you can create moods. And notice the farther back I go, the brighter the tone is, as opposed to mellow. Listen to it. I can dial in sounds. It's like having your tone knob on an electric guitar, just depending on where you strike the string. And so when I realized that, that was a game changer for me, just that I have tone control on my acoustic guitar. I just never thought of it. I always wondered, like I'd hear flat pickers doing these, these real bright things, and then you hear real mellow in other parts, and that's what they're doing, is just changing their position of their hand. So play around with playing softly, kind of crescendoing your hand a little bit, and to create that mood. You can do that at any point in the jam track over that E minor, and it's going to work. So after I did the dissonance thing, I came down and hit this E note. I just landed on the 2nd fret, 4th string, and then I played just as like a little lick, I guess. So there are a few licks in this. That's one of them. So after this E note here, it's just open 4th string, and this would be like just E minor pentatonic scale. And then we go down to the 5th string and play 2 open. We go down to the 6th string and play 3. And I pulled that a little bit sharp, and then down to my open E string, or the open 6th string. So from here you have that lick. And that's another great lick that you can steal and just sort of file away that works over an E minor. So check this out. You can do this. Now put that with the other lick. You've got this. So those are some little ideas around your E minor. I know that's a different style of lesson, but anyway, this little bluegrass kind of thing snuck its way into my ambience. So now the song is going to change chords. We're going to go to a C chord. And I'm going to play this. All I'm playing is strings 2 and 3, and I'm playing them on the 5th fret. Now, why does that work over a C chord? You should be able to figure that one out, right? I'll let you pause the video and just kind of try and work it out on your own. But do it quick, because I'm about to answer it. So the reason that works is because those 2 notes in your C chord. There's your C chord using the A shape, right? Strings 2 and 3. And all I'm doing is playing those two notes as a harmonized third. And I would slide into it just to accent it. And then to give it a little embellishment, I was taking those same 2 fingers and sliding them up 2 frets, up to the 7th fret. And that would be like, if that's my C, then that would be my D. So it'd be kind of like playing a C, D, C. Now, why does that work? Why would it work to play a D when the jam track is clearly playing a C? The bass is playing a C, the keyboard's playing a C, there's nobody playing a D chord. Yet, on top of that, as a lead player, I could even arpeggiate it. I could do all kinds of things with that D chord. Now let me just briefly explain where these chords are coming from. This E minor, C, and D. Why do these chords play well together? Why do they sound well? Well, they're all in the same chord family, and it all has to do with your scale. The chord family comes from the scale. So let's go back to the key of the song, which is our E minor, right? So if I look at the E minor scale, the E natural minor scale, it looks like this. Sounds like this. That's my E minor scale. And those, if I were to take those notes that I just played, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we're back to 1 again, I'll play them, starting on the 6th string. So it's like this. And if I were to put a chord to each of those, you'd have your E minor, then your next chord would be F sharp diminished, then you'd go to a G major, then you'd have an A minor, then you'd have a B minor, then you'd have a C major, then you'd have a D major, and then you'd be back to your E minor. And so that's the chord family for an E minor. And if you're confused by that, it's the same chord family as G major, the exact same chords. The only difference is I started on the E. And E is the relative minor of G. So hopefully a light bulb just went on for somebody. You go, oh, that's why that's the same chords, because they're relative to each other. Your E minor is your relative minor to G, and G is your relative major to E minor. So they share the exact same chords. They share the exact same scales. They're the same thing. It just depends on context. So anyway, your E minor chord, if you started with your E minor chord, that would be the order of the chords. And hopefully you can see that now. So anyway, if you'll notice when I went through the chord family, I had a C major and a D major in there, right? And so that's why when I can put this together, that's why the E minor works great as your 1, and it sounds so cool to go to that C major, because it's one of the chords in the chord family. And that's also why when I'm improvising and playing a lead, I can play that D on top of it, because that's another chord in the chord family. That's all that is. So I'm just hitting another chord that is in key, so it's going to work. So anyway, that's sort of just a quick understanding of the chord structure here for this song. And actually, I'm going to wrap up this part 1 video right there. Hopefully you can walk away with a few ideas that you can take from this and apply to your playing. Come see us in part 2, where we'll go over the second half of this. And remember, as a premium member, you'd have access to the tablature and the MP3 jam track, so you can practice playing all of this stuff and really put it in context. All right, we'll see you in part 2, where we'll go over the second half.